Good evening, Cebu. Good evening, Philippines, and good evening to all the trolls who commented and who liked with the Indian names on my announcement for this particular episode. Good evening to you. It's open mic night tonight, and tonight I have fresh from The Hague, woman of substance, the beautiful and brilliant Sass Rogando Sasot. Sass? Welcome to the show. Ay, ganun yan.
Ay, ganun ba?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because this is how we welcome guests in legitimate mainstream media.
Kamusta po kayo? Thank you, Mike, for having me here. And thank you, Cebu. And thank you for the live audience.
Yes.
My
Thank
God.
you.
It's jump-pack, huh?
Yes. And it's nice because not only are you here, your front act was no less than Mocha Uson.
Yes.
And leading the audience, who will join us later,
He's a very major blogger.
is a very major vlogger. Nagbabalik sa Cebu, thinking Pinoy. RJ Nieto. May magba-block na naman sa akin times 2. Anyway.
So if you-friend ka muna, tapos ibablock ka uli. Ganun.
Yes. So Sass, welcome to Cebu and welcome to Open Mic.
Thank you.
So how was your experience yesterday? You were at Plaza Independencia when Speaker Alvarez. Did you hear it when Speaker Alvarez said that Mocha will be part of the admin slate?
Actually, no. And Speaker Alvarez was speaking in Visaya
So you didn't.
all the time. So nobody really understood what he said. But I've heard him mention the name of Mocha. But I thought it was more
Just an
of,
introduction.
Yeah, I think it's more of supporting us, who would be supporting us, and then he was like enumerating
And acknowledging because
and acknowledging a lot of names.
Yeah.
And he even acknowledged people who were just there because they were throwing support. So, I didn't really hear Pantaleon Alvarez declaring that Mocha will be running for senator. He didn't declare anyone who would be running for senator during that time.
it was so hot, so I went downstairs and we were at the
Yeah.
backstage. So I also didn't hear it.
I was at the back of the back of Pantaleon Alvarez. Not the back, but I was behind him.
Yeah. So, but I hope your trip to Cebu provided some respite from the controversy you left behind following the ASEAN summit.
Yeah. What was that?
You were all over the headlines, and well, I told Mocha that I will have to ask her the most difficult questions I can ask, lest I be accused as being unfair, like the mainstream media that we call out. So let's go back to that day when there was this confrontation between you and BBC's Jonathan Head. Now there are different perspectives, there are different opinions, right or wrong. But before we even discuss the propriety or impropriety, whatever it is, what happened? What brought about that encounter?
I was there. I was there in the venue because Mocha would be interviewing me for her podcast.
Okay, with RJ.
Yeah, with RJ. And then we were on the way to the studio, and then Jonathan and his crew approached Mocha. And then, they exchanged pleasantries, and then Mocha introduced Jonathan Head to me. And then immediately I recognized Jonathan Head because Jonathan Head and I were confronting already each other in my own Facebook page
I know.
last year because I was calling out the BS of his article about a female assassin that he was able to interview. So I was like asking how he was able to verify that it was indeed an assassin. And how was he able to find a drug pusher on the run? On the run nga eh.
He must be a very good journalist.
Yeah, and then, so I examined his former articles. So he replied to that post.
Okay.
So we were already confronting each other before.
On social media.
On social media. And then I researched his previous article during the campaign where he described Mar Rojas in very positive light, while the rest of the candidates.
Oh, even then.
Yes, and then he described, I think, Mar Rojas with, by all means, a decent and capable.
Decent, even the word.
Yeah, so I was like, how are you able to describe Mar with these terms?
From the press release yun.
And the thing about Jonathan Head is that whenever he speaks, he keeps on sinking in a quicksand. Because during the time, he told me, I haven't met Mar Rojas. So I was like, oh, you haven't met Mar Rojas. How were you able to describe him as decent and capable? You haven't met him.
That's what it says on the LP press release, probably.
That's the thing. So when I met him, all of these came back to me. And then the Jover Lario, their latest thing about the Philippines during the time was the Jover Lario thing. So as Jonathan had is the BBC's Southeast Asia correspondent.
Yeah.
So he's in charge of everything, all news.
Is he like Maria Ressa was for CNN before? Parang pareho ba?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I asked him, why did BBC give Jover Lario a platform?
Okay.
Yeah, so I was like,
And to clarify, the debate was really not that you were not invited.
Yes, but you know what? I was asking him why was she given a platform when the first part of the conversation, of all the meat of the conversation, nobody was there. Only me, Mocha, and Mocha's manager was taking video and feeding it live.
Yeah, that's why it escalated when people started to swarm.
So all these people now who swarmed there didn't really understand the context of the conversation. It was a heated conversation. So they didn't even know that Jonathan had asked me if I want the right of reply. And I said yes. So it was BBC already who offered me if I would like to have a right of reply against Jover. But I told them that, actually the government already asked for a right of reply, and it was Trixie who was there. And
Attorney Trixie Cruz
Angeles. And then I even called it out. Even then, the right of reply was not even about Jover Lario. You were quizzing Trixie about the paid trolls of as alleged paid trolls of the Duterte administration during the campaign. So that's why I was like so angry at them, because even them, they were propagating this false idea that Duterte was is hiring a paid troll army. And then that's why I was like bursting already in tears. I told them that you don't know what OFWs and a lot of Filipinos have been doing in order to defend the Duterte administration.
Right.
And the media that was around, they took the most spinnable,
the most sensational
part and took it out of context.
Okay. But just to clarify, when you raised the issue of right of reply or Jover having been given a platform, am I correct in my estimation that you would have been okay with Jover being given a platform if there was balancing?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be you.
It doesn't have. But here's the thing. I cannot help but inject myself, because the context of Jover being interviewed there is that we outed her.
Okay.
So there was a story why she was outed.
Okay.
Right? And BBC didn't really feature that background.
Okay.
So they just said that Jover was outed. So, and Jover's safety was at risk.
Okay.
So, and then I was like, keep on telling them, okay, so if you are concerned about a blogger's safety, why weren't you concerned about my safety?
Okay.
My exact address in the Netherlands was released
Okay.
by the network of Jover Lario, Madam Claudia.
That whole anti-Duterte network.
That whole anti-Duterte network.
Which you guys exposed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you are really concerned about the safety of people, then what makes Jover Lario special?
Okay.
And why Jover Lario? Kokoy Daya was the first person who was exposed. Oh, his safety was also at stake.
But because he's hiding, so maybe they couldn't get in touch with him.
Of course, the Liberal Party knows where he is.
Yeah. But Jonathan Head would have...
He is Kiko Pangalinan's webmaster.
Kiko Pangalinan's webmaster, si Kokoy Dayaw.
Yeah.
But let me digress a bit, Sass. You have reached a position where you have more than 500,000 followers. You're one of the big three. You are educated. You have your master's in international relations from a prestigious school in the Netherlands, in The Hague. You have a voice. Politicians know you. The most powerful people in this country know you.
Charot.
Yeah, from both sides or all sides of the political fence. She's a minor. Suffice it to say, you are not a minor blogger.
Just a very...
No, but my question is, how do you handle criticism? Because you have become public, and I have a point to raise after that. How do you handle criticism? Because after this, it became an issue of propriety, impropriety,
Yeah.
the points that you raised, Orientalism, and there was criticism.
Yeah.
There was support, of course, for you, but there was also criticism. In general, how do you handle criticism?
Well, I'm okay with criticism. I was educated in a Dutch university, and if you could just have a taste of how to study in a Dutch university with Dutch people, you would understand where I'm coming from. All these bashing and bluntness and witty and even harsh comebacks, I've experienced it.
Yes.
And I don't really care so much about criticisms that are valid.
Okay.
But there are criticisms
That are not. Okay. Having said that, I'd like to ask, for example, how would you take criticism from, let's say, example, a friend? If I told you, Sass, I get where you're coming from. I understand why, where your frustration is coming from. You were outed. Your safety was, compromised. Your address is there, and then BBC has also a track record of not being very impartial. But that was the ASEAN summit. I was, for example, I was in the National Organizing Committee 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And at the time, our concern was we don't want any controversy taking attention away from the substantive components of our hosting.
Yes.
But I do get where you're coming from. But maybe it was not the proper venue. What would you say to someone who says that?
What would I say? That was the International Media Center.
Okay.
That was the nerve center of freedom of expression
Okay.
during the ASEAN Summit. That I could not practice and enjoy my right to freedom of expression in the nerve center of the freedom of expression during the ASEAN Summit is just stupid.
Hypocritical.
And doesn't honor the principle behind why there was an International Media Center.
Okay. But through it all, the criticism, constructive or destructive, whatever they may be, have you had the time to reflect on the events, in the past few days? And what are your realizations about what happened? Do you regret? Was there a better way? Would you have said it differently? Would you have pulled him aside in a closed door thing? If it could happen all over again, what would you do?
I wouldn't know because it was a very spontaneous event. So if it's gonna happen all over again, then my reaction would have been spontaneous. I was telling TP that it wasn't something like, okay, you're gonna attend an interview, like for example in a TV show where you're going to confront someone, and you would have time to prepare. You have time to condition yourself emotionally. Can you imagine? I didn't have any time to process everything.
Yeah, but you had time to have really nice hair.
Exactly.
No, but before you continue, because I really like where you're driving at. We have to pause for a short break. Sorry to cut you, Sass. We have to pause for a short break. Open mic. We'll be right back with Sass, Rogando, Sasot. We're back here at Open Mic with For the Motherland, Sass, Rogando, Sasot. Sass, so we were talking about, that confrontation. There was no time to prepare your emotions yourself. But if you had time, what would you have raised? What did you fail to raise in that confrontation?
I think I have failed. I have failed to raise the number of letter of complaints against BBC that were forwarded to me by Filipinos even before. That BBC was really unresponsive. So I have failed to raise those things of the way they answered those complaints were completely poppycock. No, I could have raised that. And I could have raised, I could have dissected all his articles to him and everything. Actually, it's not just about the Duterte administration, but the way BBC was featuring the Philippines for the longest time. That's why the issue of race came into play.
The Orientalism.
Yeah, and Orientalism. Because I told them, if you're going to examine all the articles of BBC, you would, if I'm a foreigner, I've never been to the Philippines, and I'm just going to rely on BBC for my source of information. And most of the time, people do that because they don't really have time, right? They would see that the Philippines is a backward, uncivilized nation.
But BBC did have that interview where Trillanes made a fool of himself.
Yes, exactly. But it was completely unexpected because I think Trillanes didn't know what's gonna happen.
It seemed
to
like
him.
a fluke. Maybe that's why he was caught off guard because of BBC's track record also.
Yes, exactly. And maybe he's not so used to talking to a British person or a European person. So that conversation I had with Jonathan Head, it was just a normal conversation.
You mentioned race, no? You mentioned race and Orientalism, and there was criticism from some political analysts, scientists, even historians, that your idea of what Orientalism is or how you raised it in that context was quite flawed. What do you say to them?
Well, I haven't really read their criticism, but I hope that their criticism was based on context and not just on what they saw of how I approached Jonathan Head. The Filipinos are not so used to confronting people. We're a very non-confrontational people, and I think we love to backstab. We love to talk people behind their back when we raise concerns. For example, we find a service, public service being given to us by a government agency. We find it really, how do you say, it's really poor. Instead of complaining right there and there, we finish everything, and then when we get home, that's where we complain, and we talk to everyone, even to our dogs.
Inday Sara had a Visayan word for that, libakero, di ba? Inday Sara said that.
Libakero. I'm not like that. If I've been being treated BS, I'm gonna confront you right there and then. Maybe it was, maybe my upbringing, or maybe the way I got exposed in Europe. And I think it's the way I got exposed in Europe. Can you imagine the first time my first class, my Dutch classmates, these were like fresh high school graduates, 19 years old, talking to a PhD, a professor with a PhD, and raising his voice, emphasizing that you're wrong.
With hand gestures galore.
With hand gestures. And my American classmate and I were like looking at him. It's like, is this normal?
No, but even within the Philippine setup, those who grew up here, who have no Western education, or who have not lived in the States, or who are not Spaniards, when they see those who are and families are fighting, they see bastos na bata.
Yeah.
Kasi sumasagot sa magulang.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's cultural.
So there is a cultural baggage in everything, in the way they interpreted it, because nobody would interpret the way, like, for example, Maharlika confronted Raisa Robles as bastos. But can you imagine, Raisa Robles is not a Filipino, but a white person. How would it change? Right? So that's how, so these criticisms that I use it wrong, I hope that they are considering the context. Because they haven't, these people who made that criticism were on good terms. They could have asked me about the context, but they didn't do that. They just like to lend their voice because it's a very hot issue, right? And they could have asked me, but they haven't.
Let's talk. The titas of Manila.
The titas of
Responsibilities of titas of Manila.
Buti pang titos of Manila. Anyway, let's talk about the primary reason why you're in the Philippines. You just had your life-changing journey last month, but you are here because you said that you are filing, or did you already file?
No, I haven't filed yet.
You're filing a case against Joe
Verlario. I already had a meeting with the legal team Saturday, the day that I arrived. I arrived Friday. So the next day, shortly after, I had a meeting, and then we are already fine-tuning the affidavit.
Okay.
Because I had to retrieve a whole lot of posts from my Facebook to support.
But you
my
have
affidavit.
everything documented.
Everything is documented, and next week we're going to file it.
It's libel? What is it?
It's cyber libel.
What is the worst thing that she has said, or that blog, was this Pinoy Ako blog, has said about you, that you feel warrants a case?
Well, in January, I'm just gonna give you the context. Remember Lenny Leaks?
Yes.
So we
This is, wait, to give a background, correct me if I'm wrong, Lenny Leaks is the email thread.
Yeah, from
Imelda Nicolas.
from Imelda Nicolas.
Okay.
It was from Imelda Nicolas, and
Imelda Nicolas, by the way, is the sister of Loida Nicolas Lewis. She's part of the Hayat 10 during the time of President Arroyo. And they're the same group, the same caboodle as, what's her face? Dinky Soliman, etc.
and
Buti na lang like that.
I
It's
think
kind.
I think it was during the time, and then can you imagine, the email was a direct instruction from the SOCMED team of the Office of the Vice President, instructing their online communities to attack Mocha, Thinking Pinoy, and I, and to monitor Mr. Rio and Maharlika, all those who were critical of Lenny Robredo during the Typhoon Nina.
Which is Christmas time. When she was...
They were
This was, the background again, this was the typhoon, that there was already news that there was going to be a typhoon. Lenny still proceeded with her trip to the States, New York.
Yes.
With her family because it was a planned vacation.
Yes. And then, and in that email, they also instructed their people to make this an issue that, to put BBM in the picture.
Yeah.
Like,
I-blame na naman sa
yeah,
Marcos.
raise that Sandro Marcos stupid, whatever. And then, I think the next day, the Pinoy Ako Blog, it wasn't just Pinoy Ako Blog, it was like all their networks released fake claims that I'm working as a paid escort, international prostitute, in the Netherlands.
I will not judge prostitutes, but did you ever become a prostitute?
In the Netherlands, no. And then
In the Netherlands, no. But about other places? In the Netherlands, no. But
I think I will have to answer that in the court. But because the claim is that I was working as an international prostitute. This is the narrative of Pinoy Ako Blog. I was like working as an international prostitute, and then in the middle, she said that they understand, or she understood na why I took the job as a patron, because I could no longer handle being, sort of selling my soul to
Selling
every
your
guy.
flesh.
Yeah. So it was like, it was a two counts of libel, that she accused me of being a paid troll, and then that I was like working as an international prostitute. Regarding,
which is worse?
Yeah.
International prostitute or paid troll? I think paid troll is worse.
I think both of them. I'm very sensitive to not just paid troll but to international prostitution, because I'm a transgender woman, and there is a stigma that if you're a transgender woman, you're a prostitute. And I have experienced it in Greenbelt in 2008. We were not allowed to enter a bar because we were trans women. And the reason why they're not allowing trans women to enter that bar on weekends is that those who are engaging in the sex trade are using that bar. So when they see a trans woman, that's already their profiling. So I was like so angry because during the time I was a student.
So this allegation, this accusation against you by Pinoy Ako Blog and that entire network brings to light what had happened before.
Exactly. So what had happened before, and when you ask me, did I engage in prostitution? I did, but I did engage in prostitution when my mother asked me to choose. Are you gonna stay here in my house and live, but you have to follow me? You have to live like a man, or are you gonna go? Or are you gonna leave and live your life? I was a high school graduate. How are you gonna live? So maybe I engaged one or two. It was survival prostitution. It was in 2001. But after that, I had a good thing that I have a good circle of friends that gave me gave me a bread. They just give me a way to really survive and have a lot jobs outside of it. So I picked up myself from the bottom, and I. And that's what I did. We did a study in 2003. I was hired an assistant researcher of a professor at the University of Hong Kong, and we did the first comprehensive study.
But can I say something? Kudos to you.
Oh, thank you.
Kudos to you. And before you say anything, can I just say that no person, no Filipino, no human being has the right to judge someone for what they've done, whether it's in the past or the present. But kudos to you, because from the lowest point in your life, you are a master's degree holder from a prestigious university. That's kudos. And kudos to you for your honesty. Yung iba dyan, nagpapakapeke. Di ba?
And I didn't lie about these things. Those who read my blog from the start, I have actually written about this, and I have written about this in, I used to be a columnist in Outrage magazine. It's an online LGBT magazine, and they made a profile of me there, and I narrated these things to them. So this is like open story.
But Sass, there's a difference when you say it like this and when you just write it.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
braver sometimes when we write.
Yeah, exactly. But I have told this to a lot of people. And then, so, I made something out of my life. And for someone to just pull me down after all those hard work, with those things, that's something to me. And, it's very hard to be a trans person in the Philippines and anywhere else in the world. And if you attach another stigma to it, like for example, she's working a prostitute. They even used my pictures and then attached rates there, and so why would I take it sitting down? It was patently false. So I have no choice but to file a case against them. And I even wrote a post before explaining where these pictures came from, and then they didn't even listen. They kept. Yoko Blog even reposted posted that picture, my picture with rates. So it was like they were really trying to destroy me during that time of Lenny leaks. So I don't know. Maybe the vice president is behind this.
You don't know that, but we have a very very emotional conversation here, but this provides a lot of background to where you're coming from,
Yes.
why you're doing what you do, why you filed a case, you're filing a case, and why you confronted Jonathan Head also. But we have to pause for another break. Open mic. We'll be right back with Sasot. The past 2 weeks, you're already talking about very deeply hurting issues from your past and even your present. You mentioned your mother, and they magnified again your mom's comments.
Exactly. So
And Crisette, Loretta Chu, she wrote a very,
passionate defense.
yes, it was beautifully.
And who
written.
did this? And who did this? It's still Pinoy Yoko Blog. Can you imagine how vile, vicious these people are? They're gonna use your family member against you. All families have issues. My family has an issue. If they're really concerned about our family, they could have me jaded. But what they did was like they enter it and then they use
They
my
magnified.
mother against me. And
Amplified, yeah.
And who posted it? Lea Navarro.
Vicente
And Vic, no, it's Vicky Garchitorena.
Garchitorena.
Of all people, Vicky Garchitorena posted it, and a lot of them. So what is their point in doing this?
Can I just say, I don't want to be preachy, no, but can I just say to the yellows of the Vicentes who love to pontificate and who love to preach and who love to, use the Catholic Church and some members of the clergy, need I remind you, it was Jesus Christ himself who stopped, the Pharisees and the Sadducees when they wanted to, the biblical people, when they were stoning Magdalene to death, and he said, let he who sinneth not cast the first stone. Magdalene was a prostitute, but what is she now? She's a saint. No one is beyond redemption. So to the Decentes, shame on you.
Sila, are they beyond redemption?
Well, they can be redeemed.
After
Mamatay muna sila. Diba? Paano naman sila magiging saint kung buhay pa sila? Mamatay muna bago maging saint. Hoy, it's not a threat, ha? Pia Ranada, ha? Pia Ranada, it's not a threat! It's a joke! So yeah, they used that. Sorry.
So I think,
But you have not talked to your mom for how long?
no, for a long time. For a long time.
Even your siblings?
Yeah, for a long time. I'm not here to, tell the story of my family, but we haven't talked for a long time, and then suddenly they're gonna use, this is not the first time that they did this. It's just got magnified because it was Yoko Blog who kept on posting this. Before, they even used the death of my sister. My sister
remember
died.
that.
My sister died, I think, in February or March this year. And then they even used it. They even used the picture of my dead brother, because I have a brother who died as well in 2014. And then they used his picture, and then they said that's me. I said, no, that was me. That was the picture of my dead brother. So, these liberal...
Sanderford, patay na.
Yeah, these liberal... these liberal party supporters, they're really a reflection of their principle. They love using
Death.
people
And
and
death.
death,
Death.
right?
Lenny never called them out, huh?
And Lenny Robredo never called them out.
Lenny Robredo, who is so disappointed in social media that hate is being there is ano yung sabi niya in the ASEAN business, we should guard our children, our youth from social media where hate is being sowed, something like that. But she never called them out.
So yeah, so why are they doing this? What is really the end game? How do you see yourself 5 years from now? No, I don't really understand the end game. What they would like to achieve in using my mother against me. Am I a teenager? I'm not a teenager. Do they think that if my mother said that I don't agree with your political principle, I would change and then accept with open arms Lenny Robredo? No. I supported Lenny in the election, and then I saw that this woman is bad for the country. She was really doing a lot of things that are bad for the country. It's, a lot of them. I could maybe perhaps your show is not enough.
It's not enough. But you will have a second episode with Thinking Pinoy.
Yeah, Thinking Pinoy will enumerate all of them. Because he has a list. No, so do they think that I would abandon my principle just because my mother said that she doesn't agree with them? Hello, I didn't abandon my right and my want to live myself. 17 years ago. Why would I abandon what I have truly believe now?
And you know what? You made that decision at too high a cost.
Exactly.
You had to go through all of everything that you just said.
Exactly.
And then you paid a the hefty price for it, only to just flip flop because your mom says maglenny ka.
And dun mo makikita, Mike. Dun mo makikita of how the Liberal Party thinks of us. They think that we are too stupid, that when they pull off these cheap tricks, we will abandon our principle. So you have to do better than that. I told them that, is that the best scandal that they can come up of me? I could give them more salacious ones. Charot.
But we will not talk about that. We will not talk about it. on to more positive topics, because sometimes when you just talk about the Liberal Party, it's just so depressing and frustrating. And frustrating, and we want to be happy people. Otherwise, we're bound to suffer from a meltdown on social media, like some people, no, because they take it too seriously. But anyway, Sass, you just finished your masters, no? So I will digress. You just finished your masters. Are you gonna pursue a PhD? What's next? What are your plans for the next year or so?
Well, I might pursue a PhD, but I haven't still written a PhD proposal. But I already told you that my planned PhD dissertation is about a Cebuano. But don't say that,
I won't.
because someone might copy my idea, and it wouldn't be original anymore.
But can I just say that we were incidentally talking about this particular Cebuano
in February.
Yeah, and I was talking with another friend about how this Cebuano is wrong, I think mistakenly viewed by history. And interestingly, when we were chatting about it, you had a similar thing.
Yeah, so
I'm excited for that. So if only for that, I hope you pursue your PhD, no? But how old are you now?
I'm already 35.
So you can run for the Senate.
I know! Lahat pala.
I'm just saying. I didn't say that you will, but I'm just saying that you are eligible to run for the Senate.
Cyber terrorist talaga si Thinking Pinoy.
Thinking Pinoy is shy, a year shy by election day of 2019. Too fresh. But Sass is hinog na.
Hindi, I studied politics in school. And for me, politics is a very noble practice, no matter how dirty it seems.
Yes.
And you just don't enter it because you have a newfound fame, or because it finds so alluring to be called a senator. You enter into these kinds of fields because you are prepared, ready, and that you have a clear program of action.
Beautiful, sir.
I don't think that I do have all those things.
Wala na naman ganun sa Trillanes, pwede na yan.
And
Wala daw ganun sa Trillanes. Thinking Pinoy. Umihirit.
diba? So there are a lot of able politicians who have the maturity and political capacity and rightful discernment.
But has it ever crossed your mind? Because they say, of the presidency, the 3 or 4 presidents I've been able to talk to about being president, they all say something in common. They have one thing in common. Their idea of the presidency is it's a matter of destiny. But such is the case for anything in life. Success or failure.
Yan?
GMA, FVR, ERAP,
And Duterte.
and the president, President Digong. So, hindi naman si Pinoy.
Ayaw mo talaga sa kanya, no?
No, hindi naman. I gave him a chance for 2-3 months until the Hong Kong hostage crisis happened.
Me too.
So, anyway, they say it's, so when you look at it, everything that happens to our lives is a matter of destiny. So, there might be a reason that you took a degree, you pursued a degree in politics, global politics, and then you have a master's degree in international relations, and then now you have a platform which is extraordinary. And like Thinking Pinoy and Mocha, you have an extraordinary platform in this age of social media. Groundbreaking, in other words. This is not having 1 million followers 30 years from now when social media is passé. This is having, 500,000, 1 million followers, or in the case of Mocha, 5.5 million. When social media is just changing the entire landscape, not just geopolitical or political, but even how we do business.
Ako, Mike, I think I have already kind of achieved what I think is the reason why I pursued this educational path.
You've already achieved?
Yeah, I think so.
But you're still pursuing your PhD, isn't
No,
it?
let me
Premature for you.
let me finish.
Sorry.
Let me finish.
Jonathan Head.
Let me finish.
Tumayo ka nga dito, TV, at wag ka, parang ikaw si Mocha. Ginagano niya ako. Ako si Jonathan Head, ikaw si Mocha. Patayo ka.
Nakatayo.
Ikaw magbigay ng tissue.
No.
Ako pagbalik ko may kaaway.
No, no, I think I have already achieved it, and TP was a big instrument in that. When I graduated my undergraduate degree, the South China Sea issue was already a big thing, and I actually told my boyfriend I want to pursue something in relation to this and contribute to the discussion. Everybody knows that I had a GoFundMe campaign, and that was the reason why I raised it. I said that I would like to contribute to a more peaceful resolution to the South China Sea conflict, and that's how I catapulted into the scene.
That's
because
right.
of the South China Sea issue.
The arbitration
So
case.
I feel that I was like on the right track. So I don't know if having a public position would have helped me in that mission, especially that you have to toe the official line when it comes to these things. So I think
You don't need it because all that you were after is elevating the discourse,
Yes,
enriching
exactly.
the discussion.
There are different ways. Power is very seductive. Who doesn't want power? Power can make you do a lot of things. It's the capacity to do work, sabi nga sa physics. But there are different ways of achieving power. It can be helping shape public's opinion. And I think I'm already doing that. And, I was so surprised. 2 days ago, I was in Davao City, and I had
You had a talk.
I had a talk on foreign policy.
and a couple of kisses from Pulong and Basta.
We'll talk about later. Charot lang. And then,
Kaya marami nang iinis sa'yo eh.
so I was like talking about foreign policy.
Ibang DDS galit na sa'yo.
I was like talking about foreign policy, and I never thought na, a forum about that, it's a very complex thing, would have attracted that kind of audience. And I think, having this platform, being, Thinking Pinoy promoted me basically. Sabi ko nga sa kanya, you created me. And he really did. He really did created me. And because of the South China Sea issue, yun yung sabi niya, ay bakla, mag-ano ka na, mag-open ka na ng page. Sabi ko, ayoko nga. Sabi niya.
Bakla, lagi ka na nababan.
Siya ang pumilit sa akin.
naban ka nga eh.
Yeah, so siya yung pumilit sa akin. So I never really imagined that people would listen to a talk like that. And I was like, while I was like discussing things, I was like checking my phone and see, there are questions from Facebook Live. And I saw that it had like over 10,000 live viewers. And the viewership didn't really sink all throughout the lecture.
It was
almost flat, no? It almost plateaued. So I was like,
so
people,
meaning they were engaged.
they were engaged, they were interested, and that's what I would really love to do. I don't really need power in order to craft a law. I think my mission in life is more on helping people understand what they need to understand. And for me, this is a very huge issue because, this is also the reason why I supported Duterte and why I would die for Duterte. Because the Aquino administration, the Aquino administration put our country in a path wherein we would, one day, we would be in the cross hair of the war between
major power, yeah.
China and the United
Major
States.
powers.
Kaya nga sabi
Which was
nila-
unnecessary.
It was unnecessary.
And that's why you agree with the Gloria Arroyo Paragon.
Yes, that's why I was like, why they did change it? And then they really demonized what happened during that time. And I believe someone should write what really happened during the Arroyo administration. So they put our country in this path where in one day we would have to die in a war of not of our own making.
That's true.
So I was
We will be collateral damage.
yeah, we will be collateral damage. And as an international relations scholar, it is my duty to warn my fellow men of what is at stake and what would happen if we keep on following this line. That's why, even though I supported Lenny Robredos would like to follow the Aquino line. And I was like, this is very dangerous.
She's a puppet.
And I've heard during the time BBM saying that, the China opened a line for discussion, we rejected it. And he was right. And you could see it in the transcript of the case, that China opened a line for bilateral talks for these tensions to be eased out. And it was shut down. And BBM was right. And it was like, that's why I was like, BBM was so good.
He has more foresight. But
Yeah.
because kasi naman, tama ka, because, the geopolitical configurations, who's to say that they will be the same 20, 30 years from now? So you
Exactly.
cannot just, be what you call the stationary,
Exactly.
with a position that might put you in a difficult situation.
And it will. And everyone, a lot of strategists are saying that it's gonna happen, because all the ingredients are there. So, what I saw myself as contributing more in the political discussion is related to this issue, because it is a very major issue whose implication we will not fully know, because we were not going to live in the generation that would suffer the consequences.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
that's
and
it.
there's a lot of, it's a multifarious concern, and unfortunately, this is all the time we have. But
Wala nang baste.
but we will have a part 2 next week. It's double whammy, double whammy with Sass, and of course Thinking Pinoy. That will be next week. But for now, I'd like to thank you, Sass, for the time that you've accorded us. And for doing, and for opening up, for being honest, for being not self-righteous, but honest. And in this day and age where people feel that they are entitled and they are better than other people, we need honesty and authenticity more than perfect people. No?
And decent
People. So, and continue with what you're doing. I straddle both mainstream media and social media, and I have regular discussions with my friends from mainstream, and they disagree with how things are being done on social media. But I said, you know what? We should all be students of communication and see how people, this is a very important time in our history, and it's amazing how people are starting to process and how they respond to information.
Yes.
And you guys, for better or for worse, whether, people like Mocha, Thinking Pinoy, Sass, and other bloggers or not, the point is you have effectively done what other college professors failed to do. And it's to make mainstream, more than mainstream media, to make mainstream all these concepts that used to be highfalutin and elitist. So now you have a regular Joe, a regular Filipino, who can talk about China, maybe not an expert, but who is interested.
Yeah, and who have who